Good evening, everyone. It is absolutely delightful to have you all here this evening for an evening of learning, of appreciation, and most importantly, of art. Okay? I'm very happy to see you all here. Um, I'm very happy to have you all here. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. Um, I have created, I have curated what I hope to be. Oh, thank you. I thank you, Mana. Why can't I link right now? Weird. Huh. Anyway, I have curated what I believe to be a pretty good show for you all this evening. Um, and tonight is going to be kind of a different kind of stream. I'm normally a certified funny individual on the internet, but do bear with me. This will not be as funny of a stream this evening. The intent of this stream is less to not no jokes, but there's not really a bit. I'm here to teach you, and you're here to learn, I hope. So please bear with me tonight. Um, and I hope you enjoy the show. I will have to give a few trigger warnings before we begin, because there are very obvious things to trigger warning about in Vincent Van Gogh's life. The man abused alcohol and tobacco on the regular. Additionally, there's the topic of his death and the fact that it is likely that it was a S word that I will refrain from saying for the moment, but you can fill in the blanks. So I just want to make it known that and there are topics of self-harm this evening as well. So with that out of the way, I hope that everyone will be made comfortable by my handling of the topic, and that we'll have a good time of learning, of relaxation, and most importantly of art appreciation. Okay. A few things before we begin. I don't speak French. And I've done my best to get down. Excuse me, I had to drink something. I've done my best to get down the pronunciations of certain things, but I'm not going to be super anal about them. If I mispronounce it, I mispronounce it. I'm sorry. Um, and regarding the pronunciation of Van Hall, I will not be going out of my way to to particularly say Vincent Van Gogh every single time, because that takes or Van Gogh every single time, because that's harder to say than Van Gogh, and we can all recognize that we know it's pronounced Van Gogh instead of Van Gogh. But for the purposes of this evening, I will be saying Van Gogh. Okay. Is everything good? Are we chilling? Are we okay? I'm very excited. I hope you're all very excited as well. This is a presentation that is dedicated. Okay, I know it's not too hard for you. Okay, it's not. Listen, it's just how I know how I say it all the time. Thank you. Ben, I'm not reading that. Uh, um, I hope that we are all ready to enjoy an evening of art, and this is audience participation is encouraged. If you see a piece and you have something to say about it, I implore you to say something about it. I will not shut you down on anything. Art is about your relationship to it. That is fully, that I can tell you all about the context of it and what it might mean for the artist and how that contextualizes his life. But what is the most important thing about art is what it means to you. To you, audience, and me as well. What does it mean to me? What does it mean to you? That's what matters about art. So if you find something to be particularly poignant and you want us to stop, please let me know. We will talk about it. We will talk about it more, and I am absolutely prepared to do so. Okay? So, audience, you can participate as much as you want. Okay? And in order to facilitate this participation, I have prepared a series of questions that maybe some of you who are a little bit less familiar with the let's call it analysis of the medium can ask yourself in order to get yourself thinking about it. Just remember these three questions, okay? Why does the artist express this particular scene in this way? What effect does that expression have on its meaning? And then what does this piece mean to you? These are your three, like, $1,000,000 questions for you, okay? Just remember these three, and honestly, really just the third. What does it mean to you? But the other two can help contextualize what the third means to you if you need to do so. Is Van Gogh an expressionist or an impressionist? He's a post-impressionist artist. We will get into it. So, I'm going to bring these down here, and sorry, I'll get rid of them. But if you want them back up, let me know. Okay. So, with that, I believe it's time to begin. Vincent Van Gogh was the youngest of 6, born to a family of art dealers in the Netherlands. And he was something of a black sheep in his family. He was described as extremely thoughtful and sad, and frankly, very much reflected that. He had a profound sadness about him, according to his teachers, and when he was sent away to various different schools that were away from home, he very much disliked that. He did not appreciate that. He found it to be isolating and like he was abandoned in some capacity. He would go on to describe his childhood later on as austere and cold and sterile. Eventually, after his rocky relationship with education ended, he ultimately would begin working in his family's art dealing business. However, he would ultimately stop doing that because he disliked how occasionally cold they were about the. No, don't worry. This one you don't need to read. You do not need to read this one. It's an awful picture. Here's a picture of their actual here's a picture of their actual family. Sorry. So they lived, I want to say like here in Drenthe, I would believe. So where was I? Oh, Majora's Mask, getting to that one part of the song. Sorry. What was I saying? Oh, his recurring issues with education would find himself expelled from several different places later on in his life, but also he would, generally speaking, not like education a lot. And eventually, had to hide the family's identity for security purposes. Yeah. Eventually, Van Gogh would attempt to become a man of God and attempt to become a pastor. Ultimately, this did not work out for him, as, again, education wasn't really his thing, and generally speaking, he was someone who operated better outside of generalized, like, formation of society, like, not society, but institutions were not for him. They were certainly not for him. So there is his middle school that he described. The part of why he described his childhood as austere and cold and sterile. And then this is the academy at what's the name? Begins with a Z. Zurin? Oh my, I've lost it. I apologize. But, so, with this, we move into our first piece of his artistic life. After he stopped, after he stopped engaging with, with religion as a means of, like, what he wanted to do with his life, he would eventually pick up painting, and he would be encouraged by his cousin. One moment, please. One second, I just need to... There. I thought I had my music choice nailed down. Zevenbergen? I believe that's it. I believe that might be it. So, he would move to a place called Etten. And with his cousin, that is Drenth, that is not... Okay. In Etten, he would meet... No, he went from Etten, where he lived for a little while, then he went to The Hague, which I believe is an art institution of a kind, where he would meet with his cousin Anton Mauve, who encouraged him to try oil painting. And notably, if you know much about Van Gogh, you know that oil painting is most of what he does. He sketches and he oil paints, and occasionally he does etchings. He's done like one or two, but generally speaking, his bag is oil painting, right? And we have here, actually, his first painting. This is the view from the Atelier The Hague, which was painted in, I believe, what year was this? What year was that? 1882, okay? So, he paints this picture, which is extremely difficult to tell that it's a Van Gogh, isn't it? It has very little by the means of, like, what is actually recognizable as Van Gogh's work, right? And seeing his work grow into what we can recognize as a Van Gogh is very interesting. Wasn't The Hague used as an execution platform? I'm unaware of this? Maybe. So, this work, in my opinion, is clearly intended to be much more, perhaps, photographic than it is artistic. It is, in my opinion, an attempt to be able to make a scene, because it's frequently critiqued for its composition and for its visual style. And generally speaking, it just looks very real in a not incredible way. It has a strong college student piece vibe in the best way possible. The Hague is where war criminals were judged. I believe that. Yeah, that's probably it. That's probably right. It has, like, look at it, right? You would not be able to tell this is a Van Gogh. It's very much a product of stylings of the time. It is very much a photographic piece that is practice work, in my opinion. And that's okay, right? Everyone starts somewhere, but this is where he starts, in terms of oil painting, at least, and the larger facets of his career. So we move onward from The Hague. Eventually, he moves back to Drenth, and then he goes to this new place called Nuenen. And Nuenen is a nice little town near France. Not quite in France yet, I believe, but it is near France. And what he paints here, he paints a significant number of still lifes. He's very much into still lifes. He does a few portraits, but he's very into still lifes here. And what's interesting about them is that they're actually really dreary, and they're really hard for his beloved brother Theo, who is the only real individual who Van Gogh, or Vincent rather, has any connection to in his family. He is his lifelong companion. Really, the two of them are each other's support, right? Vincent, this is not a painting. This is a photograph of the place in question. Theo financially supports Vincent, and ultimately, generally speaking, just sets him up forever, because Theo is an art salesman, and he wishes to sell Vincent's art at some point, to help him and whatnot. And that's why both because they're family and they love each other. This is Theo Van Gogh. Uh, so what am I saying? What am I saying? What am I saying? This is Theo Van Gogh. He supports Vincent. Vincent is subsidized practically by this man because this man is both his brother and loves him, but also because he wishes to sell Vincent's art because he believes in Vincent, and that's beautiful. The guy next to the house by the windmill. What? Oh, I didn't see any. This doesn't matter. This doesn't really matter. It's just a picture of a place in the place. And so, notably, both in Etten and in Noonan, Van Gogh's work can be characterized as a learning period, right? Where they were each other's blorbos. Sure. This can be characterized as a time where he learns a lot about art, and here is where he studies color theory. He studies color theory and he studies ukiyo-e art, which some of you may be surprised by. Ukiyo-e, or Japanese woodblock painting, made its way through cultural diffusion to France in the late 1800s, and Van Gogh was very, very interested in it. Frankly, and he'll get more interested in it later, but he finds the color of it very, very compelling, and how sometimes things are exaggerated and sometimes things are found to be more colorful than other things when they maybe wouldn't be in reality, right? It's very much a gateway for him of some kind. Here's other ukiyo-e art as well. And he studies while he's here at the Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, and he gets expelled from here because, again, he has a rocky relationship with education. But so, that's fine. He moves to Antwerp to study here in September of 1885, right? And this is where he does all of his studies. And so we will find here. I'm going to show you some of his work from this period. This is some of his very early work. And now if you look at this, you can kind of see a little bit of him in this, somewhat, in that it's a landscape. There's landscape. This is a landscape photograph or picture. This is the Parsonage Garden at Noonan. This is extremely dreary. This work is positively not exactly absurdist. Absurdist is much later. That's more a 20th century development, if I remember correctly. But people have been like making caricatures of things, right? It feels dead. It feels off and wrong. Something feels poisonous almost about this piece. And it's really interesting to see that from Vincent van Gogh, right? Because when we look at his later work, honestly, here, compare it to The Starry Night. Look at that. Like, obviously this one's moving, but like the point remains. You can still kind of see him though. You can kind of see the taste for landscape and the beginning of a taste for composition into this picture. So let's move on to another one. This is Die Kartoffelesser, and this is another painting that in some way can be clearly traced to ukiyo-e in its exaggerated facial features. But I would be willing to say, reminds me of Goya. Yes, very. I would be willing to say that this piece may be reflective of his attitude towards family and how he felt abandoned as a child and how the familial structure feels to him. While this may be a peasant family and he was upper middle class, this would perhaps be something reflective of how he feels regarding the family dynamic. These people are happy despite everything because they're together, and he was not together with them. So perhaps that's to say that this is like, do you get what I'm saying? Perhaps it's to say that it's a statement regarding the togetherness of family, because he loves Theo. His brother Theo brings him so much joy. He loves his family. He just doesn't want to be abandoned by them. And this peasant family is together, and they're not unhappy looking. They're not unhappy looking, so it's like, it's good. So I'd be willing to say that, like, clearly he is coming into his own in terms of being an actual artist instead of like just a individual who is practicing, right? He's very clearly engaging in composition and engaging in artistic material in a way that is very, very poignant at this point in time. And there is more to show you, but this is just a really good example in my opinion. We move forward. Do remember this piece. This is perhaps the first famous looking piece that you're going to see this evening. This is worn out. This is a sketch from his time in Nuenen und Antwerp, where he, right? Look at this. What's interesting is that this is a piece later on that is so incredibly tied to his style. Much later on in life, but then this is where it comes from. I know it looks like the Shinji pose. Okay, but hi Bonnie, welcome. This is a piece that he revisits later on, and this sketch is important. This sketch is very important because, again, remember, he is a man who is unbelievably tortured for his time. He is a sad, sad person who lives a life of sadness constantly. We move on. Do remember this piece. Please do remember this piece. This is a still life. I believe it's still life of Bible, novel, and candle, or something along those lines. He expressed his sadness in a very good movie in that last game. Yeah. And again, dreary. And additionally, he's not that far removed from his time as a pious man. So he's bringing themes of, the things that surround Christianity into his work, and I find that interesting. Here's another of his famous works that is quite silly looking in some capacities. It is the head of a skeleton with a cigarette. I love this piece because I think it looks cool, and it's hard to not bring up that one. This painting goes hard. Skeleton hits that joint. He's illustrating formal, but in that dark, dreary look at the background, it's almost empty. Exactly. No one ever believes this is a Van Gogh. A strong sense of memento mori. Oh, I'm loving this, chat. Good job. I'm loving this. Yes. Keep engaging. Keep engaging. This is what I want. I love this piece. I do. Additionally, Van Gogh was a man who he smoked a lot, he drank a lot, he abused those substances a significant amount. And it's interesting because you can make an argument that his death is eventually perpetuated and exacerbated, and the issues that cause his death are exacerbated by his substance abuse. And so it's, in some ways, this is like pathetic. I mean, it could be it. And I have one more piece from this time period for you. This is a peasant woman digging. Again, very dreary, but he does paint a lot of portraits at the time. He paints a lot of portraits in his time, just in general. It's not that he starts or ends at any given point. The bones got so much texture, I feel like I could just reach out and break them, the bones and slurp them there. Almost self-fulfilling prophecy of the skeleton one. Exactly. It's chilling in that regard, isn't it? A lot of art with melancholy themes. Yes, he did, at least early on. Well, here's the thing. They're all melancholy in their own way. It's just a matter of when and what ways is it being implemented. A dead inside a skeleton, he's accompanied by some cigarette until even his death day. True. We get sunflowers. Giant skeleton is my new fave. Yeah. Peasant woman digging is interesting as well, I find. Because, like, I almost wonder if it has something to do with, like, his inability to hold many jobs. So I would be willing to bet that maybe his depiction of labor in some of these pieces, both because it's good practice, but also because he finds it dull, he finds it uninteresting compared to that which is his true love, which is art. And he's clearly, like, growing that love for art at this time as well, so it's really interesting to see. Those weird rocking chair looking curves under her feet. Those are just like clogs, just like shoes, I believe. Like even the grass itself is extremely abstract in this picture here. Like what's happening in this scene is that and this is really interesting as a point of contrast to the rest of his work, because early she got the fake J's. Early on in his work, he puts focus on people. He puts a lot of focus on people. We look at this. This is a focus on a person. The background doesn't really matter. We go over here. This is a person. This is a person before anything else. This, we go here. These are people. We go here. The what jumps out at you immediately? The woman in black. He very much centers people in his work at this time, and that's really interesting to me. I don't know if that's a sense of loneliness, perhaps, or if that's something completely unrelated. Probably a reflection of his family. Maybe. It's possible. That's the beautiful thing. There's a million different things that you can get from this. And that's what I love. That's what I love. And I'm glad that you're engaging with it in a similar way. Him, I mean. Oh yeah. So, with that ends our time in Nuenen and Antwerp. We're going to move on to a different place. So, notably, our boy, Vincent, spent some time in Paris. He spent time in Paris from 1886 until 1888, and he did quite a bit in this time. It was still a bit of a learning period, but this is the first time when really you can kind of recognize that he is growing into his own as an artist, if that makes sense. It's the first time you really see him. I am relating to a French artist known for ending his story. Paris is lovely this time of year, so I've been told. Paris is lovely no times of the year. It is a disgusting city. So in this time, he very, very much so gets really into ukiyo-e art, as we mentioned before. Thank you, Lars. This isn't a heist, though. I already stole all this. Oh, we're in an ad? We're in an ad. We're in an ad. We're gonna wait for the ad to end. I don't wanna... How's everybody doing tonight? Is everyone good? Am I doing good? Do you want me to slow down? I can slow down. Hello, Har. Lovely to see you this evening. Thank you for that, Pat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Van Gogh would watch VTubers. Just take a breath, of course. Yeah, let me get a drink right now. Everybody hydrate. Everybody hydrate. Van Gogh would be a VTuber. I too am a fan of ukiyo. It's cool. It's cool art. Pinch sent to Van Gogh. I'm not gonna say that yet. I'll say that later. Or Stan me things. Maybe. Imagine Van being in VR chat. You sound like you're going to hyperventilate. No, I just love things. I'm just really happy. Done. This is doing great. Wonderful. Okay. Good. Is everyone out of ads? Is there anyone still in ads right now? I don't want to like go forward if we're in an ad at the moment. Okay. I'm going to trust you. So, he spends time in Paris from 1886 until 1888, and at this time he gets really into ukiyo-e art, as we mentioned before. So this is a piece called Courtesan, in which he traces a piece of ukiyo-e art that he managed to get in Paris, because there was a lot of it that was sent over to Paris, because it's like, you know, it's the art capital of the world and whatnot at the time. And so... he traces this piece, and it's really interesting that this is one of the first times that we really see his style in action. The color of it, sure, he traced it somewhat, but he did his own paint work. This is one of the first times we get to really, really see his style in action. Like, if you look very closely, his impressionist sensibilities are really on high display in this background here. I know it might be a little bit difficult to see. I'll make it a little bigger. Oh, well, now it's just behind me. But if, like, look at those storks. Look at the bamboo. Right? That's cool. That's really It's much, much brighter than his earliest work, and it's really interesting to see him come out of his shell in this way and get his ukiyo-e influences really, really solidified. Additionally, something that helped him to come into his own as a painter of brighter colors was the time that he witnessed the painting of Adolf Monticelli. This is not his own work. This is not his art, okay? This is a painting that he saw and was like, I really like the color in this. He very much enjoyed the the bright background, I suppose, and found that to be something that he should incorporate into his own work. Additionally, around this time, he saw the birth of pointillism. Now, pointillism is a art movement that is particularly characterized, and I'll show you the pivotal example of it later. It is characterized by little dots. You make little tiny dots, and then all those little dots come together, and then they make something new. It's like pixel art, kind of. If it's for a modern analogy, it's very similar to pixel art. And so he did not immediately adopt pointillism, but he did witness the birth of it. Georges Chaulat and Vincent Van Gogh were in Paris at the same time of this happening. He was a little slow to adopt it, but he did make some attempts with it. He did try it out in his work, and you can clearly see it later on. Ain't that what comic books use? I suppose so. Yes. They're just all of a uniform size, as opposed to love collage pieces use pointillism. Yes. Or rather, a modern evolution of pointillism. Because pointillism is more so based on little dots of paint. There's not really a lot of room in between them. I totally see and agree with what you're saying regarding like the comic book thing, the pixel art thing. But there's no room in between them. All the dots kind of overlap one another a little bit, if that makes sense. He saw this, and he didn't really incorporate it immediately, but he certainly made attempts to. Now, a lot of people say that Van Gogh was one of the early proprietors of Neo-Impressionism, and it is because of his eventual mixture of Pointillism and Impressionism that he is credited with this. Additionally, he is credited with a lot of things that would become abstract art, and he's very much an assistant in that. So we move forward. He made a very good friend in Paris at this time in Paul Gauguin. This is another artist. This is him. He is another individual who is attempting to react to the Impressionist sensibility in various different ways. He would like to make an art commune at some point in time, and that is a lot of his goal in Paris, to network with people and try to get something real to be able to properly engage with art in a way that is more, how to put it, pure, without the need for money. So Paul Gauguin and Vincent Van Gogh, very good friends, the two of them. So we move forward. I'm going to show you Courtesan again, just to look at it once more. Right, again, we see a lot of his influences here, really growing, really coming into his own. But here I'm going to show you early pieces that first look like Van Gogh, right? First off, I'm going to show you The Old Mill. The Old Mill is still a little bit dreary, but I'd like to call attention to the sky. The sky is absolutely massive in this painting compared to a lot of his other work. And he paints the sky a lot. Like a lot. The sky is a major piece. Even in indoor paintings, the sky makes it through into the painting. So having an early example of him putting this much emphasis on the sky as a compositional element is important, because he would continue to do this a lot. Additionally, if we look over in that little bush on the bottom left-ish of the painting there, you'll see some red in a little like lattice bit there. That is a very early example of Van Gogh attempting to use pointillism in his paintings. Whether or not it's just like to try it out a little bit, see what he's got going. Also, hello Soul, wonderful to see you tonight. See what he's got going for it, or otherwise just to see, be like, oh, this probably would work for that, wouldn't it? It's unknown, but he did do it regardless, and that's important. So allow me to bring you to the first picture, or the first painting, that I am willing to say looks like a Van Gogh. This is Seascape at Santa Maria. This is beautiful. I adore this piece. If you are to look at it, very, very close, if you look at it in person, its texture is beautiful. The way that he paints is so physical. It's so real, you know what I mean? It's like sculpture in some regards. And his painting of water, and he loves blue, he loves yellow, and to see and a lot of Impressionism revolves around. I apologize, I didn't actually define what Impressionism is. I'm so sorry. Impressionism is a style that is dedicated towards the use of thin lines, as well as frequently it's based on tracking light. Light is something that's very, very important in Impressionist art, and seeing how it moves. So this piece, where the reflection of the boats on the water is so prevalent to the hue of it, this is a very, very, it's a pretty decent example of Impressionism in this regard. He does break some Impressionist rules, though. You'll notice there's a lot of really thick lining here with really, really thick brushes, and that is very cool. That's very, very cool to me. This piece is just so physical, you know? It's incredible. I love this one, personally. This is the first one that I'm willing to say really looks like a Van Gogh, if you get me. If that makes sense. So we will move on. We will move on, for the moment, to another piece that is very much... the cresting of the waves! Especially because this is something that constantly changes, too. He was able to capture this in a painting, and that's a testament to how quickly Van Gogh paints. He had a theory about it. He was very much like, painting needs to be done quickly. It is a stroke of genius. It is not something that... he didn't really say that, but there was clearly his modus operandi was that a stroke of genius is something that happens quickly. You can't plan for it. Yeah. Great piece, in my opinion. I adore this piece. 10 out of 10, would steal again. So we move to another piece. This is a portrait that was painted in his home. He lived with Theo, his brother, in Paris, and he would line his room in ukiyo-e woodblock paintings. So he had this man come up to his room, and he would paint him. And so a lot of the color of this really comes from the ukiyo-e in the background. And it's really interesting to me that the background is so incredibly bright that it brings our gentleman here, Paratangai, into a greater light. He is made much more vibrant because of the background, and it's interesting to put him there. So yet again, another piece that is very much saying this is Van Gogh coming into his own in terms of color and style, and that's really interesting to me. So we move forward. This is not a Van Gogh. This is Georges Seurat's A Sunday on Le Grand Jatte. This is the seminal work in pointillism. This is pointillism incarnate. If you look really closely, and I apologize that you may not be able to, everything here is dots. They're all little dots. Yeah, he was certainly happier in France. He was living with Theo. He was stable to a certain regard. He hadn't really... he's never really a happy person. But there are times when he's happier than others. Let's call it that. Yes, this is a very, very famous piece. Very, very important piece. And you'll see, it's probably best noticed if you look right about where my hand's pointing to this, green, this dark green here, this shading. That is probably where you can most easily see the points. Even the ground split. Yes, it's a very, very modern dot rectangle. It's kind of obvious, but still, yeah, that's good though. That's good though. It's nice to come up with connections to things, right? It's very cool. So this is pointillism. Like, the purpose of this piece being here is because this is pointillism. And you'll be able to see something similar to this, not quite the same, because Van Gogh was very much into larger brushstrokes, larger dots, which you will see momentarily, actually, because he did make a concerted effort in Paris to mimic pointillism to a certain regard, and that is in his set regarding the Seine River. I can see it in trees, especially when it's not in front of the sky in top left. Yeah. This piece is Bank of the Seine. This was painted in 1887 by Vincent Van Gogh, and this piece in particular is very, very pointillist in sensibility, particularly in the trees. He seemed to really love it for shrubbery early on, and I don't blame him. It makes sense, right? It makes sense to to do that. But notably, reminder, the sky is remaining as a large, like, monolithic thing. The sky remains. The water remains as a more impressionist means as well. He is so good at at painting water. It's incredible. Water is really one of his strong suits, and it's kind of a shame, too. He lived inland for so long that you don't get to see him paint nearly as much water as maybe I would have liked him to, but he paints certainly good things as well in his later life as well. But water is really a strong suit of his, in my opinion. The ripples in the water reflect the front of the rustling leaves. Wow, right? Right? Van Gogh was very, very interested in the beauty of the world in front of him, and he found a way to capture that. He captured that beauty in his own personal style. That was very much his MO. To take the world and capture it. Maybe not capture it exactly, but capture it enough. I can really tell he made this. Water is also one of the hardest things to paint as well. Yes, exactly. No, he's incredibly talented. Let's be clear, he's incredibly talented. Not that I'm saying anyone's saying he isn't. But so let's move to our next piece in the Seine set. This is another piece which is much less pointillist in sensibility, but this is Bridges Across the Seine at Anières. And this is the Seine set is all rivers, or a river. And here you really see that he's fallen in love with color, and sunlight, notably. This is a piece where he really exhibits a love for yellow early on, and you saw that as well in Courtesan as well. But here you really see a lot of yellow, like a really, really big amount of yellow. And notably he studied color theory, and he found that he loved yellow and blue. Clearly, he found that he loved that color combination. And it's just like, look at that train up there. That's wonderful. You can see it's detailed, but it's also so abstract in nature. It's really, really nice. Beautiful piece. I quite like this one. Additionally, the smoke from the train, it's incredible. The sky is very pretty. You can tell where the light source is. It's very consistent. The reflections, once again, his reflections are absolutely immaculate. Another piece that I also like is that this woman in red, really ties it together with the rest of the bridge. I don't know if she was actually there for it, but he clearly seemed to think that she would help the painting, and she does. Yellow is associated with happiness. You think that could be a reason he loved and used it so much. It's certainly possible. It's certainly a possibility. That, or it was just a love for, like, the natural state of nature. He was very much a nature guy in some ways. So it would make sense that the color that's almost most prevalent in nature outside of green, in the sun, and that which gives life, would like, be his preferred. But I like your take here, Bunny. I like your take. I do like it. It's a good take. But so we will now move to our last picture within the Seine set, and this does have a bit more of a pointillist sensibility once again. This is Walk Along the Banks of the Seine near Anières, and this piece, I really like this one personally. Notably, it is a piece that has pointillist sensibility in the leaf work, but also look at the sky. Look at that water. Like, we're just gonna say it over and over again, but look at the sky, look at the water, look at the trees, and because that's what he paints. Okay, it's gonna get a little redundant, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. it looks so soft. It looks so incredibly soft. And then, like, the fact that like, the darkness in that top left, it's really interesting. It feels almost like the world is folding on itself. Like the sky is a reflection of the river, and the river is a reflection of the sky. They're one and the same. Like, it's really, really nice. It's a real nice one. Yeah, again, he's also centering people a lot. Additionally, he was in Paris. It's kind of hard to avoid people in a major city like that, so I guess I get it. But he's centering people a lot more than he does later on. He slowly stops doing that, and I think I have a reason for why. Blue is a color commonly associated with thought and reflection, so thinking about it now makes sense why water was a specialty given his thoughtful and reflecting nature. It wasn't necessarily his specialty, he's just very good at it, I'd argue. But I'd agree, this is certainly a posterable painting. Good thing I have the real thing. Alright. So, we are going to now move to one of the most important times in Vincent Van Gogh's life. Allow me to show you Arles. This is the city of Arles. It's not really a city, it's a town. The town of Arles. It is a place in France that is not maybe like 20-ish miles away from Paris. And after he got tired of... You will not be eating my paintings, I swear to God. After he tired of the Parisian lifestyle, and, well, tired as in he drank a bunch and smoked a bunch, and then his health was failing, and he needed to leave the city, somewhat. He moved to a place called Arles. This is Arles. This is Arles now, notably. It's much smaller at the time. Very, very small town. And he describes it in a very peculiar way, if you'll allow me to read a direct quote from him in a letter. The zouaves, the brothels, the adorable little Arsinian going to her first communion, the priest in his surplice, who looks like a dangerous rhinoceros, the people drinking absinthe, all seem to me creatures from another world. So, notably, Van Gogh was like, maybe like late 20s at this time, because he did do a lot. He did a lot of stuff around before he actually picked up painting properly. You see a bisect? So I'm not going to explain this picture yet. I'm not going to explain this piece yet. I'm just showing you this to show you the our legions. I will come back to this picture. Don't worry. This is the arena at Arles. So we will move on. In his time at Arles, he stayed in a house aptly titled the Yellow House at 2 Place Lamartine. And it's just this really yellow house that he rented for about 15 francs a month. Or, well, Theo subsidized it, of course. But he lived here, he worked here, and he very much was trying to, like, make friends in some ways. He was lonely. He was a very lonely man. And notably, this entire painting actually is yellow. Not just the one house. It's interesting. Could he have perhaps seen this as a means of saying, everywhere is home? Arles is my new home? This was painted as part of a set, which we will be viewing the entirety of. It was a large set called Decoration for the Yellow House. This was made very early on, and through his time, 1888 to 1889, pardon me, allow me to catch my breath. I've been talking a little bit. How are we all doing? Are we all doing good? Are we following? Do we have any questions? I'll stop for questions. Do we have any questions? You're thoroughly enjoying I'm breathing. I just get a little excited. Big stretch. Okay. So, this piece, notably, Having a good time, enthusiasm, and passion during the... Thank you. Thank you. So, this piece is very important in that it is one of the few actual accounts of what this place looked like, right? And oh my, pardon me. And everything here is yellow, not just the one house. And that makes me think, like, is everything home to him at this point in time? And look at that sky. It's uncharacteristic of his skies in some ways. It's notably very set. It's matte almost compared to a lot of his other work. And it's really interesting at this point in time, the way that he paints urban centers versus how to put it, rural areas is quite different. Quite different. Pardon. So before the house was furnished, he started using it as a studio. The house, the yellow house. And he would paint very famous work here. Very famous work. So allow me to show you the decoration for the yellow house set. This is the first that I will show you. This is this is the old mill. Pardon me. Whoops. It's almost like you recognize how systematic the city life is. You associate with clear skies? Maybe. Because he felt like he was at home, he didn't need to look at the sky all the time. Also possible. Also quite possible. Or perhaps he just really liked that blue and yellow. So, we view this, and again, the sky, very prevalent aspect. People are featured here because he is attempting because this set does take the time of pretty much his entire stay in Arl, his 2-ish year stay in Arl, to finish, and he very much is like centering people in some regard because he wants to fit in. This is where he wants to live for the moment. He moves around a lot and he gets a lot of different jobs. He can't hold a lot of jobs. Frankly, he's kind of an outsider, and so maybe he's trying. It would seem that he's finally trying to find a place where he belongs after so many years, and that's why he is centering people in some regard. Water. Oh yeah, that little creek there is absolutely beautiful. I quite like this piece. It's relaxing, you know? It's very relaxing. The sky, I really like the texture on the sky. The brushstrokes are very visible, and that makes it feel more like a painting. Additionally, look at the in the grass just above the creek, if you would please. The unique texturing to show that it's like a trodden location. Like how the landscape kind of blends together with the house itself. Like everything is blending together in his mind. Possible. Definitely possible. Yeah. Allow me to show you another piece as well. This is the first of like the sets in this set. Okay, so there's subsets within the set, and this is very famous work of his. This is Vase with 3 sunflowers. Now, in some way, it almost looks like they're competing with one another, right? And in this vase, they're really the texturing on the petals is just quite beautiful. Really something else. Really impressive. I don't have a whole ton to say about this first one, but when we move to the next one, this is 6 sunflowers. Notably, the 3 from the previous one remain, of course. However, there are others that have died and withered below it. I wonder why. I wonder why that is. Additionally, this is a much darker painting. This specific derivative and repetition of this is that it's very different. So perhaps he's like making a statement on the life and the death of flowers, and how there's even even in art that is going to last longer than these flowers, the flowers may still die. That's just how it goes. He was a rather pessimistic man, that Van Gogh. But so the three initial ones remain, and oh, look at that signature navy or royal blue and yellow combo. It's very beautiful. We move forward. This is 12 sunflowers. This is very famous work. This is some of his most famous, in my opinion. This art doesn't make sense, almost. This one and the following one almost don't make sense from a posing perspective. Because there's so many in that vase and they're so varied in where they are. The meaning, of course, most likely being the cycle of life and death, and possibly that life requires sacrifice. The three remain while the flower bodies surround them. At least that's my interpretation. Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's a good interpretation. I appreciate that, chat, that you're like really getting into this, okay? I like that. Don't let me tell you what it's all about, okay? I've just got my own interpretation of things. I encourage you to make your own. I'll tell you mine, because I like telling you mine, but I encourage you to make your own if you disagree. The flowers are very overcrowded indeed. It could be a metaphor for Arl, indeed. So we move forward yet again to 15 sunflowers. This piece almost doesn't make sense. How the hell are they still standing? How are they doing that? You know? And what's interesting is that Van Gogh was very much an artist who painted what was directly in front of him, more often than almost anything else. He painted what was right there. He painted that, and he captured it, and he put it in his own style. That was his MO, generally speaking. And he had exceptions to it. I'm not going to say he didn't have exceptions to it. However, by and large, that's what he did. So seeing this, which could potentially be just drawing a bunch of sunflowers or extrapolating and wanting more sunflowers, I don't know what that could mean. It could be perhaps that he felt that when he was inside of his house he felt a little trapped, hence the flowers in the vase are literally attempting to get out. Flowers circle soil and water flavor, that could mean something, possibly war. This might be a reach solidarity and hardship. The flowers all suffering together in times of suffering. I like that, and I like that take. I don't know if it's relevant to the artist himself, but that doesn't invalidate it. That does not invalidate it. Your take on it is equally valid regardless of whether or not the artist intended it. There's nothing here to say no to that. I'm not going to tell you that that's wrong. Yeah. It's just interesting to see him go from more abstract locations, I suppose, in his mind. So here we move to our portrait set within the decoration for the Yellow House. He also did like a million derivatives of each of those as well. He did like 4 at least repetitions of each of those sunflower paintings. Where, you know, he like paints it again just in a different way. Yes, this is the postmaster. This was one of his earlier portraits at this time. And it's interesting that he puts so much focus on this man. This is just a really... I almost wonder if it was a commission in some regards. I'm not entirely positive. But this is a very, very famous piece of work from our beloved Vincent here. Oh, my music just looped again. Sorry. And it's really interesting to see, in my opinion. This is just a nice piece, honestly. The the beard is very nice. It's very intricate there. The subject needs to be the focus. Well, this is true, but also, I'll see. You'll see. I might challenge the claim with postmaster. I like this one. I don't have a ton to say about it, but it's interesting to see that he likely traded portraits of people for favors or something. Like, hey, I'll paint you. Because he's not exactly a rich man, even if his brother is subsidizing his life in some regards. But his is more detailed than the rest of the feast, which I guess makes sense for a portrait. Yeah. So we'll go to another portrait now. This is the portrait of Patience Escalier. This one is interesting to me because I almost feel like this was painted after the fact. I feel as though this was almost done from a sketch. I'd be willing to say this is done from a sketch because the background does not appear to be coherent with the shovel that the man is holding. Where is this man at? Where is he? Where the shovel is what he could possibly be holding. I almost feel as though while Van Gogh maybe was out on a walk, he saw this man and said, "Hey, can I please sketch you?" And sketched this man, and then finished it later. That's almost what I think about it. Apparently, he was fascinated by the Navy man's face. I remember that. I do recall this. Yes. He does have an interesting face, doesn't he? Weird beard, doesn't he? Full disclosure, I haven't eaten dinner yet, and these colors looking real edible. Come on, don't threaten my paintings, please. A lot of really good detail here. I love the eyes. I really love the eyes in this piece. They kind of look at you, don't they? Okay, hold on. Before I get lost in the painting again, they do look a little tasty. You know the background. No, it doesn't. I don't. It's French. It really tastes like snails. Yeah. It's a very nice piece. I like this quite a bit. We move onward, though. This piece is of Eugene Bosch, otherwise known as the poet. Oh, okay, but the piece is called The Poet. Eugene Bosch isn't also known as the poet, but the painting is titled either Portrait of Eugene Bosch or The Poet. Hello, Astro. Wonderful to see you. I hope you're doing well. We're discussing Van Gogh. So this is a piece that I find really interesting, because if you look very closely, if you look closely at the background of the picture here, it almost looks like the night consumes him, or it's almost consuming this man in some regard. And I wonder, because if this man's a poet, I wonder if his poetry was read by Van Gogh, and it informed his decision regarding this. I find that to be compelling, especially considering that Van Gogh was very much a fan and a multilingualist. He was a fan of literature as well, very much so. So I wonder, sky can also represent heaven, perhaps, certainly, perhaps. Additionally, like the marbling on his face, the brushstrokes on the face, very, very interesting. Again, this is another piece where blue and also yellow are used liberally. It is clearly his favorite color combination, without a shadow of a doubt. He loves it, and he really, really puts it into implementation here further. I think that's really interesting as well. And there's almost something... I don't know what I was going to say. I don't know what I was going to say here. I just like this piece. I think it's nice to look at, and I especially think it's nice to look at in person. It's you really, really get the texture. It's really a textural piece in the background. So if you look at it from the side, right, you almost see the texture of the night before you see him. So in some way it's oh, the night is obscuring the man if you look at it from the side. So only when you look at things from a holistic perspective do you see what is the truth. And I think that's just an interesting takeaway you can make regarding the physicality of this painting. Let us continue. This is the last of the portraits. I don't have a ton to say about this one. It's a really incredible... Let's look at that blue again. Look at the hues! Oh my goodness. And remember, this was 1888. 1887, 1888. You know how fucking hard it is? Or 1888, 1889. You know how fucking hard it is to mix paint? It's hard now. Imagine it then. Him getting all these different and interesting and incredible hues of blue is so impressive to me. The poet's mind, definitely possible. Considering his apparent mental health issues, the idea of the night obscuring the man hits different. Yeah, it's oil-based paint. Yeah, right? It depends on the kind of paint, but he did oil paint, so I'm sure it wasn't easy. Or was his pain and his muse? Oh, yeah. Oh, we're gonna get into it. So this is a piece called The Lover. I don't have a ton to say about this one. is, you know, it's blue and yellow a little bit. It's a portrait of a guy. It's interesting that almost like his hat looks not real. Like his clothing looks not real, but his face does, kind of. I find this interesting. I find this to be an interesting piece for this regard. Get a good look at it, right? Get a good look at it. Digest it a little bit. Think your thoughts, you know? Think your thoughts about it. And do recall this is when the Ottoman Empire existed, so this is likely an Ottoman man. A man from the territories controlled by it. The Navy man had a similar situation. Agreed. 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 This doesn't feel like one of his pieces. Right? It's a little too... I almost wonder if he was paid to make this. You know? I almost wonder if this was kind of a shoe-in. I would suppose I would need to really look into it more. And there is a lot of that texture again in the background. But I'm interested in this piece because it doesn't seem right. The features are quite realistic comparatively to the rest of his work, and that's what's compelling about it. In some regards, it doesn't feel right, does it? Yeah, you know, he's very much anti-realism in some capacity. He's realism, but not, and that's interesting to me. He's trying different things, and maybe it was a commission experimentation. Maybe I also love the threes on the collar. I don't know why. They're quite nice. You can clearly tell they were made like a, you know, or like very slowly. There's either or very slow. Yeah. I'm gonna move on if we don't mind. Okay. For some reason, I'm drawn to the star and crescent in the corner. It's nice. It's almost hurried in a regard. I wonder if it was there intentionally. Because there's no light coming from it. That's not where the light source in the painting is. You know, I almost wonder if this man was like an Ottoman soldier of some kind and needed to have the Ottoman logo on it somewhere, and he felt, okay, I'll just scrawl it in yellow in here. It is certainly possible. You know, people aren't always fans of other religions at the time. It is quite commanding, but I almost wonder if it was rushed. I have to wonder if it was rushed. Alright, we will continue. This next piece is the beginning of a bunch of landscape-ish portraits again. This is titled The Night Cafe. And he has an interesting quote about this one, which I will not quote directly, but I will paraphrase. He says something along the lines of there's something interesting about a cafe at night. You can really like get violent there, hypothetically, do something awful. And that the lamps, the light, yeah, no, his attention to light. He loved light. What he took from Impressionism was absolutely light and how to handle it. I would be willing to. I would defend that point, very heavily. Again, we see a centralization of people as well, but also like not, because this feels lonely, doesn't it? See pointillism in the flower bouquet. Yes. Good catch, Mono. Good catch. Lonely but colors are warm and inviting. Exactly. Because he's welcome. He's welcome to be there, but he feels wrong, and he's acting that way because of it. Additionally, you don't see a lot of red from Van Gogh. You don't see a lot of red from him. It's interesting to see red. Also, the perspective is a little... The perspective is technically correct. Everything is made with an eye for how the eye would perceive everything. If you won't let me either have a grab for a quick snack, yes, please do. Please grab a snack. Everything here is made with like a certain attention to the clock, 1/4 midnight. Yes. Because he's welcome if there doesn't belong. Oh, okay, that's relatable. Haha. You're all welcome here. Unreal Tournament FOV! There's something about the perspective that's peculiar. You know? It doesn't quite sit right to me. Like the room's spinning somewhat. I like this one. I like this one quite a bit. So here is a painting that you may recognize, but do not jump to say it's the Starry Night. It is, but it isn't. This is Starry Night over the Rhone. This is a different Starry Night. There are at least two. And this one was painted first. This painting depicts the sky over water, of course. Water, which we've said before, he is an absolute maestro at the creation of. And additionally, you'll notice he is astigmatism confirmed. He is very, very dramatic with his presentation of the light. And now I'd like to point out as well, it looks as though the Big Dipper is what's reflecting onto the water, but that's not true. It's actually each of the individual little shops. It's the buildings that have the light coming out of them and reflecting onto this water. And the stars just line up. That's really interesting, I'd say. I like that. That's a personal touch that I enjoy. Additionally, perhaps this the centering of this piece around these two lovers would perhaps mean something regarding romance. He was a man who was uniquely disadvantaged in romance, let's say. He was once turned down by a woman who said not in Dutch, like no way, never. was her rejection of him. So it's interesting to see how he portrays potential romance in these pieces. This is an undeniably romantic piece. If you listen, I may be expensive. I might be expensive, but come on, you bring me here. What am I supposed to say no to you? You know what I mean? This is so romantic. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. In a different way than the other Starry Night too, which is really interesting to me. So, if we don't mind, let us continue on. We can revisit this later if you would all like. Let us go. This is the first of a set of 3 that is centered around gardens. This is the first of 2 public garden paintings. Now, notably, I would like to point out the people in this are abstract in nature, as with the nature itself. The nature, and this is something that I find very, very interesting about Van Gogh's art, and I find it to be very applicable to this set, is that, or this subset within a set, is that, frankly, the pardon me, allow me to collect my words for a moment. The way that he paints nature is to evoke an image of nature within you. It's not to capture it. It's to bring your own memory of it into context within this. So like this tree, you kind of fill in the blanks then say that's a tree. That's a tree because you know what a tree looks like. And your experiences of trees are brought to the forefront. That's interesting to me. Just about all these wide shots of a sense of on the outside looking in. I completely agree. I completely agree. He was a man who was more or less shunned in his time, unfortunately. Which could either be, I feel like, an outsider, I'm just warmly appreciating my fellow man, or both. I feel like he, when confronted, said it was the second one. But as time would go on, he would certainly adopt the, I feel like, an outsider approach. People didn't understand him. He was not appreciated at his time. People thought that his work was ugly, in a lot of ways, unpleasant, even, some may say. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And so let's continue. This one's also called Public Garden. The first one's called Public Garden. This one's also called Public Garden. So I've taken the liberty of calling it Public Garden 2. Notably, this gentleman here has no face. You have to wonder if we'd think the same thing if we were alive this time, that his work was ugly. I don't. Maybe. So that was at least a dude. Could be a tree. Right? Like look at this again. Look at those leaves, right? You can just kind of like see Public Garden 2 Botanic Boogaloo. um like his like the way that he portrays people and the way that he portrays nature are really, really well contrasted here, I think. And then here is this one's named differently. This one's Garden of the Poet 3. So this is the third in the Public Garden set. Just let you know, his work is renowned now, but apparently wasn't so much thing. Yeah, I get you, Astro. I get you, Astro. I agree. I think it's interesting when we think about what artists are unappreciated now, versus who will be appreciated as hidden gems in the future. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about. Again, another romantic scene as well. A good follow-up to the garden, of course. Those three really do a good job, in my opinion, of juxtaposing his portrayal of people versus his portrayal of nature. Here's another set as well. That are not really a set, but there are two paintings that contrast one another in a really interesting way to me. This is Railway Bridge, and this is loving the nicely rendered triangle crotch in our friend here. This is a piece where it is distinctly urban, but even in what is purely urban, what is strictly urban, the sky and the sunlight remain, and I find that really interesting. Because again, I've said it, Van Gogh was a man very, very dedicated to the exploration of nature. And we will see that he thinks that nature at least in his art, nature prevails regardless. Nature is inescapable. And whether that's just because he lived in a semi-rural place, or if that's his intention, is unknown. But that's what I kind of get out of it. Again, the people are extremely abstract, almost like a checklist of what could vaguely resemble a person is fulfilled here. And also, his patterning underneath the bridge there is very, very interesting to me. I like that quite a bit. Also, that sky. Look at that sky. The way that he portrays clouds in the top left of this is really, really nice. The texturing on it, when everything else here is decidedly really smooth looking, right? This doesn't pop out a lot at you physically, and that's like maybe to represent the concrete. Like, it's a very straight brushstroke that doesn't do a lot outside of it. So to see that the sky is this wild thing that jumps out at you, right? It very much juxtaposes man-made versus natural constructs. I find that really interesting about this piece. The very back of the bridge is a really nice sunset lighting. Yes. He loved sunlight. He loves the light. We move on. Van Gogh Sky King strikes again. No! Here's another piece. Again, the sky's doing a very similar thing. This one is really interesting to me, though, because this doesn't quite look right, does it? It's the fact that it's so subtle makes me love it more. Yeah. A lot of the same things kind of occur, right? You have your very smooth lines on your man-made construct. This is a tinfoil hat, but I'm tempted to say that maybe his whole nature prevails as a rejection of the Industrial Revolution. I don't know his life or his work or life very well, but I'm not aware of any industrial factory paintings he's made. I like that. I need to think about it more to see if maybe it's an intentional thing. And if I do look into it more, I will get back to you if I have an answer definitively. I'd like that, though, Astra. I like that quite a bit. This piece is interesting to me because if you look very closely, the outlining on everything, the man-made constructs have so much in the way of outlining, right? Look at those stairs. Look at those stairs there, right? Look at that. I can't really point to it super effectively, but excuse me, the stairs going up to that top bridge, right? They aren't filled in with color all the way. The little corners of it, are not filled in with color. And that's really interesting to me. Why is that? Why was that not filled in? This is a finished painting. Why was it not filled in? Perhaps it was a sacrifice to maintain that man-made smoothness that he's attempting to do with his brush strokes, or perhaps it's something else entirely. Why are they not filled in? A great question indeed. We will move. This one is called Trinquetail Bridge. Trinquetail. Ooh, this next one I like quite a lot. This next one I'm a big fan of. This is L'Alican. This is a piece that was painted alongside Paul Gauguin when he was here, when he was in Arles at the time. And this piece is really interesting to me because it almost juxtaposes the last two that we saw. It's interesting to see the sky gray and without texture, lifeless almost, right? Like concrete. And then to see these trees so tall tower into that sky and mitigate it as best as they can, absolutely dwarfing anything else nearby. The people are tiny in this picture, insignificant almost. It's very interesting to me, particularly the sky. I love this one quite a bit. I'm just looking at it for a minute. The gray sky of the bright trees makes you think of fire, but in an inviting way. I'd agree with that. I think of something like power, kind of. I think of something powerful when I see this painting. But I'm interested to see that it's comforting. Is there any greater feeling than absorbing a piece of art and doing a big thinky think about it? No. That's why we're here. That's why we're here, in my opinion. There are still a fair few more. We have at least 10 more pieces in the Arles set to go through, including poetry, movies, music, etc. and that too, of course. Yeah. That's why I love it. It's art. You know? Everything's intentional. Whether you know it or not. The question's why. Why is it intentional? Why was that done? I quite love this piece. This is a personal favorite of mine. It's also no blue. No blue in this piece. Very easily the sky could have been blue, but it's not. It's peculiar, almost. Allow us to continue on. Even though the sky in autumn in general is kind of cold, this feels warm somehow. Yeah. Let us continue on to another really striking piece. Now, you don't normally see red from Van Gogh, but this one is titled, the fellow's shirt is bluish, I think, but that's it. Yeah, it's not like enough to be able this is titled Red Vineyard, and this piece is incredible in my opinion. One of the really interesting things that Van Gogh does from this point forward, kind of, is he plays around with what the color of certain things should be. We saw it in the last one where the sky was gray and smooth, but if we look to the left, if you look at the left of that ridge of trees, they're blue. They aren't green. They're a bluish green, I'll give it that, but they're blue. They're unnatural looking. And that really, really helps to juxtapose how the red vineyard with the people in blue working in it looks. And I find that the composition of this looks like a forest fire in some ways. It looks is that not the roofs? No, those are trees. The colors on the ground are really, really nice. The differences in the reds is very, very good. And again, that water Mono mentioned. Additionally, we look at the miscoloration of things as a development of Van Gogh's style, and we see the sky is yellow. The sky is not blue. That doesn't always happen in these. The sky is bright yellow, vivid sunflower yellow. I thought those were little houses. There's one way out in the back. There's one or two way out in the back, but like the ones on the very left of the painting, at the very left top, like the top left corner, I think those are trees. To my I like the conflicting and clashing colors, almost like a conflicting bustle and bustle of life, emphasized by the crowd of workers. Also, the center lady's dress kind of looks like a fish head. Oh, it kind of does, doesn't it? But yeah, this is a piece that I like a lot. Another banger, truly. This is still in Arles, notably. This is still in the town of Arles. This is all remaining within the set, the decoration, or decoration for the yellow house. The trees kind of makes my brain go winter. Meanwhile, the plants, the people, and attending to make me think autumn. And I wonder what season this was made in. That's a great question. I cannot place it on it. It almost feels unnatural, doesn't it? Good catch. I like that. I like that catch. Good job. Yeah, it's really something else. My brain says autumn. Yeah, right. It gives me autumn, but I see I almost think summer in some regards because it's a vineyard, right? Like, when do you harvest that? Summer, right? Spring, maybe. It's interesting. Very interesting. Let us move to our next one. These two are quite important. These two are quite important. This one I'm going to show you at the same time. So this, enamored with human activity but not participating in it. I've been there. Allow me to show you these two pictures. So this is Van Gogh's chair. That's what this is titled. Notably, notice the blue and yellow. Mods are asleep. Post big chair. Notably, the blue and yellow, very, 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 very interesting, very, very important. Hence, you know, the fact that this was made within the blue house, or in the yellow house. Pardon me. This is this is Gauguin's chair. It's possible he made it conflicting seasons to convey his conflicting feelings. Yellow is often meant to convey happiness and optimism. It's possible he's cautiously optimistic during a conflicting time. I like that. I like that indeed. I think that's an interesting way of taking that, Danny. I like that. This is Gauguin's chair. Notably very his color palette is different. It's more brown and a turquoise. I like to think of this set personally as something of a friendship bracelet between the two. I like to think of this as like, this one's representative of Van Gogh because it's his chair, and then there's Gauguin's chair as well. Because we're in ads. We're in ads. Okay. How are we doing, everybody? Let me get a drink. Let me catch my breath. Let me know when the ad's end, please. Hydrate and snack time, indeed. It's possible that the chairs reflect the painter. It's possible that the chairs reflect the painters. I agree. Yeah, it's definitely possible. I really like the friendship bracelet angle. I don't think that these ever ended up in Gauguin's possession. I don't think he took his with him. It was reflective to how Van Gogh felt. Poor man never got a comfy chair. But it's really interesting to see how different they look from one another, even just from a compositional standpoint. Like Gauguin's is much closer to the camera. You can see the entirety of Van Gogh's chair, perhaps meaning that you can see that Van Gogh was capable of comprehending the entirety of Van Gogh's thought. But Gauguin, he could not quite see all of it. He was unsure of Gauguin. These meant to be the same chair depicted by two artists? No, these are both done by Van Gogh. This is just two different chairs. Good thought, though. Good thought. I quite like these two because I think it's cute, kind of. We move on to a portrait right now. This is titled In the Library, and I'd like to call attention to how quickly this feels like it was made, right? Additionally, this is an indoor painting and the sun is inside, or rather being shown through a very, very clearly open window. this appears very quick in nature, right? There is... It seems to be more function over form type, because he doesn't really care. Gauguin, however, is more covered, but also has armor for the background, meant to show how reserved but comfy Gauguin may have been. Possible. Certainly possible. Certainly a possibility. So we see here, this is a... There's many things happening in this painting, and I don't know how to word it. I agree. It's confusing. Because even though he's so close to this woman lived next door to him, by the way, she's an abstract. She's an abstraction to him. Why is that? And she's surrounded by sunlight. Perhaps he had a degree of romance for this woman? It's possible. Certainly possible. She's reading a yellow book. She's surrounded by light. She's in a library. She's posing. Like, there's a ton of things. Gauguin did take time to rest, but Van Gogh didn't rest from painting. This is true. This is the truth. It's a matter of their priorities, I think. Yeah. This one is interesting to me, and I don't think I can say a ton about it because I have more questions than I have answers. I think I need to spend more time with it in order to really get it. But this is another one that almost doesn't look like a Van Gogh because it looks like it was almost made too fast. If that makes sense, right? It's interesting indeed, isn't it? Let's see, what's next? This next one, I'm going to skim over. You're going to see it briefly. This one, we're going to return to momentarily. She's also very heavily shadowed, meaning something went wrong. Did he love her, but she didn't love him? Oh, certainly. He never married. There's some things that, like, he may have had a few affairs earlier in life. So maybe it was just approach to do portraits by people who actually genuinely liked his work. Maybe. I think I'm... so this one, we're going to go by quickly. This one's very beautiful, but we'll come back to it momentarily, okay? Welcome. This is the La Arena in Arles once more. And I think that this one really exemplifies how Van Gogh felt within this community. Because he, notably, paints a total of like 2 discernible faces. There are very few people he feels he understands in this place. The people in the background are barely even people. They're abstractions, they're shapes, they're mere colors upon the canvas. And then the yellows, the joy of the center, they're not paying attention to them. They're paying attention to their joy. I feel that this pretty effectively demonstrates something about what Van Gogh felt at the time. This is my personal understanding of this piece, personally. Very tragic, and nearly gets more so. This is L'Arsenienne with gloves and an umbrella. I believe actually this is the same woman in this piece, perhaps. I think this is the same woman. I think that Gauguin had an unfinished painting of this woman as well, and this was also done very quickly. This was done in the Yellow House, it would seem, and she's posing for someone. Presumably Gauguin. She looks positively gaunt. Yeah, right? She looks dead. It's weird. Perhaps he just really didn't like painting inside. And also, you'll see, I'm pretty sure that these are in chronological order to a certain degree. Remember this lady? Right. Right. You got it. You got it, Maya. You watched that movie with me. To begin to contextualize my research. Yeah. Poison status effect. Yeah, she looks off, and I wonder why. I don't doubt it was painted quickly, but I wonder why. Yeah. So here we have Le Berceuse, Augustine Roulin Otello. This is a... I don't know if he held disdain. I think he loved her and just didn't know how to say it. It's possible. I don't know why she was painted like that, though. It's entirely possible. You're right as well, Danny. Yeah, this painting in particular is very interesting to me. because it does kind of, like, the simplicity of the woman versus the complexity of the background draws you towards her face, but then back to the background. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting to me. And additionally, in terms of composition, this is really nice as well. I quite like the cut of red at the elbow. I think that's nice. It looks like she's looking down. She looks sad. I wonder why. What a stately bosom. Agreed. This one's quite interesting to me. We'll move on. I apologize for perhaps going a little fast at this later part here, but I just don't want to lose my voice. Doesn't really like painting clothes. Well, also, additionally, remember, clothing was not even remotely as intricate then as it was now, or as it is now, so I suppose perhaps that's a recency bias of sorts. You know, this is just peasant clothing, really. Paradise almost oddly proportionate. Arms appear to cut off and move, almost like a paper puppet. Ooh, yeah. I see that. I totally see that. Yummy toaster waffle, but ooh, yummy. This piece, oh. Just look at it. This is the Sower with Setting Sun. This piece is beautiful to me. And this is as an orgasm. Listen. The way I read this is that the sun, like the texturing of the sky in this painting is really, really interesting to me. The sun is, yeah, it's the entire sky, and also the sun is patterned in a similar way to how he patterned the petals on the sunflowers. It's almost as though it's a recognition of the sun as a giver of life, and that everything here is connected to it. And look at this shrubbery, this shrubbery, these crops, they are blue. That is blue. That is bright blue. Or soft blue. That is not green remotely, and it is entirely interested in serving his color theory, and it's really interesting to me. Even the man wears blue. He probably wasn't even wearing blue, but. And then the fields of wheat. He loved fields of wheat. We'll get to that. It's almost like an antithesis of the sunflowers. Interesting. Oh, you're approaching me. He does kind of. He's giving that gaunt. Sounds like, or that gate, isn't he? But I love this piece. This piece is incredible. Right? It's incredible. It's amazing. You can look at those, like that field of blue, and just get lost in it, you know? What just came unconnected? Are my hands working? My hands work. We're fine. Okay. You can hear me, right? Okay, cool. You can. Weird. Yeah. I love this piece, personally. It's a favorite of mine. Without a doubt. I'll put that blue in a flower vase and take it home. Yeah! Yeah! I think the setting sun and walking away to the blue flowers is a reflection of Van Gogh moving away from optimism to reflect and move on. Maybe. Maybe subconsciously. Perhaps subconsciously. Yeah, I love this one. And I will now bring us, reluctantly, to the final piece in this set that we'll be looking at in Arles, okay? This is Bedroom in Arles by Vincent Van Gogh, of course. And notably, this is his bedroom within the yellow house, but it is blue, and I wonder why. I almost wonder if he views yellow as something that should be more reserved for the outdoors to a specific degree, because especially like the inside of the yellow house was also blue. So perhaps it's just blue inside. It's possible. Return to the chair. That's his chair right there. Look at my Minecraft bedroom. The walls are diamond. um, and even in this, the sunlight from outside is peeking through and providing yellow to the scene. This one's nice. This one's just nice. It's a nice piece that's good and fun to look at. His textures remain on point. His brushstrokes for the wood are very, very interesting, though. Lack of god rays, though. 210 would look at again, but only briefly. Yeah, let me get some god rays, please, Van Gogh. Yeah, it's very good. It's somber in a way, though. And maybe that's just because the music I'm playing and the guy I'm talking about, but there's something sad about it. In a certain way, it almost looks like the... I just had a realization. It looks like the chairs are pointed in such a way to where they're attending to someone who is in the bed. If there were someone in the bed, the chairs would be pointed in such a way as if, like, a doctor were talking to someone in that bed. Why is that chair like that? Could it be a reflection on his illness, maybe? That in his place of residence there is someone sick, and that someone would be him. Oh no, no, you made it sad! Oh, it only gets worse. I'm sorry. It's my Minecraft dog. He had a sneeze. Oh no! Oh no! Right, why are those chairs like that? I like my interpretation. I'm gonna stand by it. Yellow, blue, green, yellow. Could be the bed. The bed is possibly his favorite spot in the room. Red, where he finds passion, either through affairs or being cold stuff with new ideas. Green embodies renewal and fairly new. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that before this moment, but I quite like it. I quite like that. I'm gonna make myself sad if I keep on looking at this. Uh, so what we've learned from the Arl set is that he's very, very much beginning to really rely on color theory and the expression of different colors for different things, right? Things may not always be the same color that they are maybe supposed to be in the real world. Additionally, he becomes increasingly lonelier as these go on. The people within them become more abstract. The people around him shun him, and it shows in his art. This was the decor of his yellow house, and this is what was on the walls. This sad, lonely set of eyes. If you would excuse me, I think that it's time that we take a short break. Is that okay? Because we've gotten approximately 2/3 of the way through. Also interesting that the window is not all the way open to keep the sickness in, though the wisdom from Van Gogh's time, I think it was that fresh air can cure damn near all ills, so I don't know if I find that interesting. Yeah, yeah. Um, I think I will take a short 3-minute break of sorts, just to make sure that I have everything uh sorted for the next bit. So I'm gonna go to the BRB screen momentarily. I'll play a different song for a little while so you can hear anything else. But we're gonna take a short break, like 3 minutes. I'll be right back, everybody. Thank you, BK. So, hello, I'm back, everyone. I return. Very. I hope that you are all. I hope that you are all enjoying the the evening. I know the music's still on. Is it too loud? It's probably too loud. It's too loud. That track is way too loud. It's Chrono Trigger. Um, it's so I don't know how to tell you this. It gets sad from here. So allow me to tell you about the visit from Paul Gauguin. So Paul Gauguin visits Vincent Van Gogh in Arles for a period of time in 1888, and the two of them are pretty good friends, right? And Vincent Van Gogh is he's a very lonely man. He's very interested in Gauguin's approval in some regard. And so the two of them paint together. This is a portrait of Gauguin. This is not done by Van Gogh. This is just a portrait of him, unrelated. No, allow me to get some music for this. The two of them are, they're decent friends, and they paint together on the regular, and they, they're helping one another. And Gauguin has critique for Van Gogh. Van Gogh frequently, as we've said, paints what's directly in front of him. He doesn't always paint it as it appears to him, but he paints what's in front of him. This piece is Memory of the Garden at Eton. It's called that in French, but it's this piece was directly made, but with the prompt by Gauguin to Van Gogh to paint using your memory. Paint what's in your head, not what's in your eyes. And their philosophies differ fundamentally on how they kind of engage with that, but this piece is very different because of it. In some regards, this works, and the dissemination of the unnaturality of color certainly moves into his other work that we saw from his time in Arles. Right? This is the truth. This happens. However, it's quite different. The clearest face is the woman. Why was her pain and agony his most vivid memory? That's a great question. That's a really good question. Yeah, the faces are extremely clear, aren't they? Because he likely remembers what he felt at the time, and how he felt others felt about him. And remember, Eton was his home. We talked about this already. We talked about how, his family seemingly pushed him away. And maybe he views them as sorrowful as well. What he paints from his memory is an interesting thing to look at. They're French, they're never happy. That's true. But also, this one looks almost bizarre in its coloring, doesn't it? There's very little that actually, remains stagnant or remains what you would expect. These bright reds and blues on the women's clothing, as well as the garden themselves is filled with red flowers. This section right here, there's a little bit of yellow that's being tended to. The fellow looks less devastated than Madame here. He looks kind of pensive, I guess. Yeah. And then I don't even know if that's water or not. Look in the stuff behind the green. Is that water? I think that it's either water or it's shrubbery that's just blue, like how we've seen him do before. But I'm unsure. I'm really unsure. Does he remember as much as he should for this? Is that water? Is it flowers? Is it water? What could it be? I'm unsure. And I think that this piece is very representative of Gauguin's influence over Van Gogh because it looks very different, and it's fundamentally very different in its production as well. So this is kind of the influence that Gauguin is attempting to give to Van Gogh as critique, right? Because again, remember, at the time, people didn't think that his work was good. They thought it was ugly. And Gauguin liked it. He liked it. He didn't think it was bad. But he also wasn't a champion of it either. And that's a difficult situation to be in, because Van Gogh felt a distinct urge to please Gauguin. Now, Gauguin only made one single painting in this time period, and that's this. This is The Painter of Sunflowers by Paul Gauguin. This is Van Gogh painting Sunflower 6. And it's interesting that the influence of Van Gogh on Gauguin has compelled him to utilize blue and yellow so incredibly prevalently in this piece. It's interesting to me. So, what does that say? It could entirely be that Van Gogh's fears were largely unfounded. And while he did fear that he would leave, which he ultimately will do, because, he can't stay there forever, Van Gogh's fears of being completely rejected by Gauguin were perhaps unfounded, considering the influence of work that has been given to Gauguin in his time here. Gauguin didn't like it in Arles. He thought the people were stupid. But did he like Van Gogh? That's the question. So, as all things do, and as all visits do, they end. Gauguin has to leave, eventually. And this leads us into perhaps the most I don't necessarily believe secretly in love, but I certainly think emotionally dependent on Gauguin's approval, because he seemed to be the only person other than Theo who was willing to give him the time of day. Allow me to bring us to a this is Elden Ring. This is the round table hold. So allow me to bring us to one of the most infamous stories of Vincent Van Gogh. The issue of the ear. So, it's unclear why he cut his own ear off. Notably, he did this, and this is where the self-harm trigger warning comes in. So I'm going to give you like 10 seconds to mute the stream. I'll like wave my hands a bunch or something when it's like not there anymore. If it's prevalent. So here's like 10 seconds. It's like, fuck. I can't count them, I think. But okay, let us go. So this is the ear incident, and he cut his own left ear off with a razor and packaged it and gave it to presumably the woman featured in L'Arsenian and in the library. That woman, for the purpose of giving it to Paul Gauguin, perhaps. I'm not groping myself. Anyway. He cuts his ear off, and he gives it to someone. And she freaks the fuck out, because she just got a fucking packaged up ear in an envelope. He like bandaged it and everything. And that's, she's freaked out, so she like calls the police, and he is brought to a doctor, one Felix Ray, who is a doctor in training. This is a portrait of Felix Ray that was made by Van Gogh. I love the background in this, but that's not what matters right now. So Felix Ray helps him, and he's like, hey, do you like think it'd be a good idea to go to he just got some I agree, Vaughn, I agree. Do you think it would be a good idea to go into voluntary asylum? And ultimately, reluctantly, Van Gogh agrees. He agrees, but not before he's admitted to a hospital. He's admitted to a hospital for a while, but at Ray's um, recommendation, he will eventually enter an asylum. But so, uh, again, his ear has been cut off. It's been cauterized. It's healing. He just doesn't have it anymore, and he enters the hospital. Teo comes on Christmas Eve to visit him, and he can only stay for a day. Um, and it's quite sad. Quite sad. No one really knows why he did it properly, but apparently he gave some degree of point regarding it, that he was like hearing voices or visions were becoming manifest surrounding him, and he felt that he had to cut it out of himself to some degree, um, which is tragic, truly tragic. Um, he had no recollection of doing it. He didn't know why he did it. He just did. And this was not like an isolated incident. He would frequently have moments where he just doesn't remember why he did what he did. This portrait is, or this painting is the garden at the hospital in Arles. He had to paint, no matter where he was. Not only did he love to paint, he had to. He felt he would die if he didn't paint. And later on, he requests Gauguin to... oh, pardon me. Oops. He requests Gauguin to come visit him. And this is the ward within the hospital. But Gauguin refuses on the basis that he felt that if Vincent saw Gauguin, it would probably kill him. Vincent, that is. And he may have been right. So they two never saw one another again. And despite their somewhat soured relationship since, so exited the life of Paul Gauguin, one of Vincent's greatest friends. I told you it got sad. So it's time to talk about Saint Remy. Allow me to tell you about his time in asylum. In May, I believe it was, of yes, in May of 1889, he voluntarily commits himself to Saint Remy Asylum. Okay, and that's his place, and he stays there for a year. He stays there for a year of his life, and he was allowed to paint while inside. Thankfully, good for him. Very happy for him. And it was at this point in time that, obviously, considering the ear incident, his delusions and his visions and his otherwise issues were at an all-time high. So it's perhaps... Oh, yeah. Yeah, signal for the muted people. Muted people can unmute. Centers are very haunted and heavy places. Oh, yeah. So, Van Gogh, notably, you can find that his work took on a slightly different means in this time. He found himself frequently actually paints this, and he doesn't paint it, he illustrates this, and Van Gogh has seen this, and notably, he lightens the color of the prisoner's clothing. It almost is representative of straitjackets in a way, which were very commonly in use at the time. So, and additionally, Van Gogh's signature blue and yellow appear here as well, a bastardization of the nature that he knows. He is trapped here, and he is one of these prisoners, walking in a circle, incapable of seeing something new. Again, there's the original, there's Van Gogh's. Now, there's a little bit more I need to show you from this period. This is two peasant women digging in a snow-covered field at sunset. Notably, Van Gogh had a tendency to begin to paint winter scenes when he was at his worst. Northern scenes with snow, right? And this one in particular is emblematic of that. It shows this. It shows the North. And that's just one of his many artistic quirks that has been corroborated by witnesses at the time and people who knew him at the time, that he tended to do that when he was going through it, let's say. And now, a piece that I have asked you to remember. I'd like to introduce you to At Eternity's Gate. This is the finished piece representing the sadness and melancholy that Van Gogh felt throughout his entire life prior to his beginning of art. And now, even though he has art as a coping mechanism, all he can hope to do is weep. However, Van Gogh does leave the asylum eventually. He gets better to a certain degree, and after his, while he's in asylum, actually, good news, great news, actually. I have really wonderful news, actually. He gets a good review, not just a good review, a review calling him a genius. One Albert Aurier publishes a review that is extremely like pertinent and helpful to his career, and he like people are really interested in seeing his work in galleries. And it's incredible. People really want to see his work in galleries, but he doesn't sell a lot yet. Theo still hasn't been able to sell a lot of his work yet. So he's not super successful immediately, and it's getting hard to, like actually get out to the public. But someone saw something in him. It's incredible. While he was in asylum, this review comes out. It calls him a genius. And in May, Van Gogh gets out of the asylum, right? And another incredible review from Claude Monet, the guy who made Impressionism. Claude Monet sees his work in a gallery, and he says it is the best in it. It is the best there, with like bar none, best in that gallery. Things look good. Things look really good, right? Like, yeah, right. This is some of Monet's most famous work. This is Water Lilies of Japanese Bridge by 1899. This is technically anachronistic to our time, but it's a helpful example. He made Impressionism, and what he saw in Van Gogh's work was good enough to be able to say that's the fucking best here. So, Van Gogh leaves asylum in May, and eventually he manages to find himself a little place with one Dr. Gachet in this place called Auvers-Chauvoise. It is a little suburb of Paris, just outside. There's lots of nature for him to be in, and he spends a good 80 days, a good 80 or so days in this location. He spends 80 days here. And he lives with this Dr. Gachette, who he paints a portrait of, who is a melancholic man, who the two become reasonably good friends. And Van Gogh, he has a certain perception of him, Gachette that is, and he's like, oh, for his demeanor, he's almost worse than me. Um, and that's funny, I'd argue. Um, so the two are like good. They're getting better, and things look good. Things look amazing. Van Gogh is at the height of his technical ability. His new attention to spiraling that he got and has since managed to somewhat control a little more, it now appears in his art, and this is an unfinished piece, but even this is really incredible. And he, while still getting better, he owes a lot to his creative process. If I may quote Van Gogh, canvases will tell you what I cannot say in words. That is, how healthy and invigorating I find the countryside. Now, he found it invigorating because he was unbelievably depressed, right? And it helped him feel better. Now, I love this piece. This is an amazing piece, but he had a certain love of painting these wheat fields. He loved the wheat fields. He loved them so much. They were probably his favorite thing to paint. Now, this next painting, this one, is called Tree Roots, and I quite like it. It's it's jagged in nature, and it's rather different from his other work, but it's compelling in a different way, isn't it? It's notable because it is the last work he ever finished. Doesn't get easier to talk about. Um, so Van Gogh, on the 28th of July, 1890, reportedly shot himself in the stomach about a mile away from his place of residence, and he hobbles back to the inn where he lives, and he tries to hide the wound, and he goes up to his loft, and he is moaning and wailing in pain. And his friend, Dr. Gachette, comes by, and he says, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And he says, I have wounded myself." And Gachette inspects the wound, and he finds that the bullet is lodged next to his spine, and to dig it out would only cause him more pain and speed up his death. So, it's unknown what Vincent van Gogh may have had. We can guess based on retrospective diagnoses what he may have had, what may have been wrong with him. He may have been bipolar disorder, or acute intermittent porphyria, or temporal lobe epilepsy with bouts of depression. We don't know. Regardless, it was exacerbated by being overworked, malnourished, an alcoholic, a habitual smoker, and he is met after 30 hours by his brother Theo. His brother Theo comes into the room, and he talks with him for a while. And Theo says to him, he's like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And Van Gogh's last words are, the sadness will last forever. But that's not the end. For you see, Vincent van Gogh is an artist, and art lives on. Despite his brother's death some 6 months later, and the comparative inability for his brother's wife to be able to spread his work. Eventually she would spread it far enough and wide enough to be able to actually propagate the legend of Vincent van Gogh. His work would be appreciated after his time, and eventually he would be credited for multitudes of different absurdist different styles. Fauvism is developed with Van Gogh as a major influence, and Henri Matisse sees him and loves his work and is very inspired by it. And German Expressionism is also built partially on the back of Vincent van Gogh. And for a moment, and later on, his work sells is some of the most expensive sold paintings ever. He has 3 different paintings, all of which selling for over $100 million in current money. He has 3 different paintings that do that: the portrait of Dr. Gachette, the portrait of the postmaster, and irises. All 3 sell for over $100 million. A man who thought he had no value to give to art has the most expensive sold paintings ever. Vincent van Gogh is a man for his time, and he was tragically taken from us before he was capable of providing even greater work that he could be that he could disseminate unto the world. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you've all had a delightful evening here, talking with me about the work of this man who, while peculiar in many ways and in other regards, is a man who contributed extreme amounts to art. And I hope that you have learned something today. And you have maybe not even about art. Thank you very much for this. I hope that you have learned something about yourself and sticking through things. I hope that you have had a delightful night. And do we have any questions? Oh, I'm trying not to cry a little. Oh God, his story gets me every time. When do we get to kiss the presenter? Oh, you. Thank you. Thank you. You flatter me. You really do. You flatter me. Love your beautiful, deep mind. I was just a humble star when I witnessed you. You're an amazing creator, a lovely, lovely creator. Thank you. Thank you, Astro. The passion exciting from the presenter helped to make it even better. Top tier stream. What inspired your initial pursuit into the exploration of art and its connection to eliciting emotion? What was it that ignited that spark? Okay. That's a pretty easy question, actually. I can't really say a lot about this yet. It's technically classified information, but um, why I love it is inherently its emotional basis. What it means, the distillation of emotion in paint, or in song, or in film, the distillation of a thought. That's what I love. It helps you learn. It helps you learn about it. It helps you learn about yourself. And that's what I love about art. Thank you for asking that. I appreciate it. We cannot eat the Starry Night now. Your passion is the most infectious thing I've ever witnessed. Oh, oh, you are so sweet to me. You are so sweet. um, the distillation thing. That's a good way. What was the piece of art or music that ever led to such an epiphany? George O'Keeffe's Music, Pink and Blue, #2. Its impossibility is I really love it. It doesn't seem like it could exist, and frankly, I don't seem like I could exist either. And it brought me out of a bad time, I think. Can we kiss the raccoon gently upon head? Okay. Since you're asking. If someone is on the verge of tears of screaming that I don't want to hear them talk about anything they've proclaimed to like. You're all so sweet to me, you know that? Very sweet. I really do hope you learned something. Or maybe found, if you want me to send you a specific painting, a PNG or a JPEG of it, of course, um, I will do so. I will not send you the real thing. I worked very hard to take them all, you know. Some of them weren't even in my possession anymore. I had to go out this week and go and get them myself. Um, if you would like me to send you any given one, please try to describe it to me in like DMs or something or in the Discord, and I will. I might just actually send them all um, to a specific channel in the Discord that I used. I think that might be appropriate to do. So if you're not in the Discord already and you would like to find these in a quicker way. Obviously, these are all on the internet. You can find them because he's incredibly, he's one of the most famous artists ever. Um, I will put them in a place where they will all be visible soon. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Please do more of these. I need more of you waxing poetic about art. I would love to. If you guys are in for it, I will do as many of these as I can. As I would absolutely love it to do. I haven't been exposed to all that much visual art. To you could turn me into it. It's really nice, right? Especially when you just really let yourself get into it and just kind of like talk and really really like tear it apart kinda, because there's always something intentional. Every detail is multiple brush strokes, right? You don't do anything on accident. I'm not that great of an artist myself. Well, I suppose visual artist. I'm the best Twitch streamer. Uh, but it is it's really important to me that that like we do it. I'm not a great visual artist, but I do love to look at them. You know what I mean? So, you're so sweet. All right. Let's now that that's concluded, let us find a someone to rate. New points on things like color theory, allowing new points I didn't know existed to see that from your perspective. Viewers, visual art, though, so do some really cool shit with it. Thank you. That is, I suppose that's right. I suppose you're right. Yes, you are absolutely right. Let us find a friend to raid. Who is live right now? We're gonna raid a little bit outward. We're gonna raid. Pardon me. The finest piece I've ever seen to do is pinch. Oh, you. I think I know who I would like to raid. She is doing crafts right now, it would seem. She, if you're aware of Lasso Cassidy, she, I think, is his. Well, okay. I only say this. She obviously has her own merits, of course, but I only say this because we There's an ad. Fuck me. Sorry about the ad. We'll wait. Um. Um. I am having an ad full of puppies. I ain't even the least bit mad about it. That's nice. I guess if you're gonna get an ad, it might as well be full of puppies. You are free. Ad hell is over for you. Wow. So, if you are aware of Lasso Cassidy, I only say that because I've like rated him before, so he's perhaps a known figure within our community. Lasso Cassidy's wife also streams. She is Cactus Cassidy, and she is currently doing some crafts. So, in the spirit of creation and the appreciation of creation, we are going to raid into her. Okay? Does that sound good? I hope you have all had an absolutely incredible night. I hope you continue to have an incredible night, and I would love to see you all here again another time for another stream like this. So your initial growth from art analysts getting on streams like this is fucking amazing. It's such an art. Thank you. Most of the time looking at art with people, you have great art. Maybe one or two comments, feel emotions, and move on. It's such a great feeling to really discuss the meaning of art piece and how it makes me feel. Yeah, and the artist feels how it really says good stuff. I hope you all have. I would love to continue this conversation. Please talk about it in the Discord if you are unsatisfied with just ending here. I would love to talk more later on. But so I bid you all adieu, and I hope you have a great night. I hope that I've been Pinch. You've been delightful. Have a wonderful night, and check your pockets, by the way.